Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are a student, you can't escape exams, and exams are a part of students' life. But no one actually teaches us how to study properly, how to study efficiently, and gain good marks in the exams. So what eventually happens is that we actually take up the techniques and methods which we feel intuitively right and continue with them. If you are here, my name is Mano, and unfortunately, the studies and researchers shows that what students intuitively feel that it's a right technique to study, right approach to study, not necessarily the ones which are most efficient for study techniques. And hopefully, if you are a college student or a student whose exams are approaching, hopefully by the end of this video, you will get to learn some amazing study techniques which might help you to gain good marks in your exams. Let's hop into this video. So before getting into the efficient study technique, let's look at some of the study techniques which everyone on this planet Earth has tried out in some point of time in their life. And there are three basic study techniques which we all tried out in some point of time in our life. And the first one is rereading. Rereading is good. We all tried it out in some point of time in our life, either in schools or colleges or a day before exams. We all try to reread the chapters and notes what else. But is that actually a better study technique? And for that, research is conducted by researcher Danlowski. He is also a professor, and he and his colleagues and his teammates conducted research and found out a lot of past research papers for better learning techniques. And they found that rereading is not the best, it provides less utility than other study techniques. Yes, it of course provides you some efficiency and some value at the time of examinations, but it's better to consider other study techniques rather than following this rereading technique, because it is less efficient and you will be wasting a lot of time by rereading a chapter, and you have to go through a lot of time. So it has less utility and it's not efficient for a student to study for their examinations. And I don't want to talk about a lot of theory back behind this research, because these are all the inefficient study techniques. You can check out all the research papers. They are on Google, they are on internet out there. Now let's move on to the next inefficient study technique. Now the next one is highlighting. Yes, highlighting. We all like to do highlighting on our notes, on our books, whatnot. But actually what happens while highlighting is that highlighting is, to be honest, highlighting according to research is not one of the efficient study technique as well. It has less utility because once you highlight, it's rare that you will get back to that. You won't retrieve any information from that thing. But the interesting part is that highlighting is something which everyone in this in this planet Earth does. And it's so interesting, right? We all have that one highlighter pen which we have and mark it on our books and notes. We do it regularly, irrespective of how it looks, what the notes is. It's such an interesting thing, right? We all are, intrigued to do something crazy about highlighting things. We will have multiple colors, sketches and whatnot. And so study says that it's better to learn how to highlight efficiently and learn from them instead of cutting off this technique itself. But according to some researchers, it is said that highlighting is not one of the best practices to do, and instead of highlighting you could try out some other best practices like taking notes and something else. So the third one is note taking. Yes, the same note taking which we do in all our classes, all our lectures, all our colleges and school classes. But there isn't any specific studies which says that note taking is an inefficient thing, because you can't compare notes of one person with other person, because a note which is taken by me is not same as taken by someone, you. And if person A takes note in a certain way, person B doesn't necessarily takes a note in the same way unless he copies from person A. So researchers and studies can't compare these two two people's notes, and they can't come to a conclusion. Yes, there are note-taking techniques, there are kernel note-taking techniques and many other techniques which prove to be one of the best techniques to learn, but still it is considered like inefficient one. And as the same professor Danlowski says that note taking is good, there isn't any perfect study saying that it is inefficient, but still you can't consider it as one of the efficient study techniques which you can use in your daily life. And something interesting is that I use it every day. Whenever a class is going on, whenever a lecture is going on, online classes, whatever it is, I take notes properly. I use either digital notes or take notes on a paper with a piece of pen. And this is something which everyone, like almost 90% of the people on the planet Earth does. and note taking is super like quite famous among all the people, irrespective of the age, right? Like from a kid to adult, everyone take notes properly, and still it's not one of the perfect learning techniques to have. So the interesting part comes here. These three are one of the quite famous learning techniques which all of us use, but still they are inefficient, and yet we manage to score better marks in our school and colleges. And if these three things are inefficient study techniques, what should be our efficient study technique should be? Now let's check out the efficient study technique. So now we have entered the meat part right now. According to science, according to researchers, according to all the research papers done out there, active recall is one of the most famous, most productive and efficient study techniques out there. And Professor Donlowski says that it has more utility, high utility than any other study technique. And active recall, as the name suggests, it's about recalling information from your brain. It's all about retrieving data from your brain rather than uploading more data to it. And this technique is quite intuitive, and if you are someone who has to recall something from your brain, it has more connections formed. Like if you are recalling something from your brain, it helps your brain to form new connections, new neuron connections, and eventually help you to learn and remember better. So researchers went on to study this technique and check whether it's actually efficient or not. And they split students into 4 groups, and each group has given the same study material. The 4 group of students and each student has given the same material. So the first group of students has to study the material only once, and the second group of the point over here is they are given the same material, but they have to study them in different study techniques. And the first group has to study them only once. The second group has to study the material multiple times, like 4 or 5 times. And the third group has to study them and make a mind map out of it, like having a picture of what they have learned from that content. And the fourth group has to study only once, but recall it multiple times. And they conducted 2 tests, and first one is verbatim test and the second one is inference test. So in these two tests, it was significantly found that the group of students who followed active recall actually scored way higher marks than the people people in the other group. So from this inference, they found that active recall is actually good for us, is actually an effective study technique. Also, this study shows that studying only once is way more efficient than reading the same chapter multiple times. Also, and I'm sure we all use rereading technique in multiple times in our life, throughout our life maybe. But actually we can efficiently study if we use active recall and read the subject only once but recall it multiple times. So this is actually an efficient technique to learn. Now that we have seen active recall is one of the best study techniques, but we don't know how to use that in our daily life. And let's see how to do that. Let's see how to use active recall in our daily life, in our daily studying schedule. And we all are a fan of taking notes. We can't give up on that. So we can try to find a way so that we can include active recall while taking notes itself. So that's the technique while you are taking notes. And when you are taking some notes, like for example, you are taking notes from a lecture where they said that the World War I started on 1914, and you can just convert that particular note, that particular sentence into a question. So when was the first World War started? And you can hide the answer somewhere and say that 1914, and when you are revising them, try to answer the question without actually viewing the answer itself. So that in that particular way, you are trying to recall what you have learned and try to retrieve what your brain has stored actually, so that it is efficient and it's more powerful to actually recall and summarize your things better. So actually there is also other technique, but I prefer not to do that because and the technique is that when your lecturer is taking classes or taking lecture, you can you not take notes while they are taking classes. Once a class is completed, you go and take the notes and recall what the lecturer has taught, what the professor has taught in the class, and take notes based on that after the class is finished. But personally for me, at that point of time when the class is over, I used to forget a lot of things which is taught in the class, and I used to to go back for the notes and go back to someone else for the notes. So I personally find that this is not a particularly useful technique for me, but instead I will do something like, while taking notes itself on the class period, I will try to convert the particular sentence into a question so that it's useful for me. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next one. Bye bye.